to the Knowledge Burst webinar series, where we talk about blockchain and trusted data and Web3 and how these technologies are really making an impact in the market. I want to thank everyone who is watching us live and online, and I'm really excited about what we have today. I want to encourage you to join the conversation, leave a comment, or reach out to us at info@burstiq.com. So today, I have the pleasure of chatting with a few folks. The first is one of BurstIQ's partners and my friend, Dr. Ann Ingram. Dr. Ann is a health information and social technology strategist. She is an advisor to community-based organizations and community behavioral health organizations. She is a passionate advocate for the value that emerging technologies can offer and their ability to solve deeply entrenched social and community problems. She is an author, a speaker, and the principal CEO at Exponential Health Tech Advisors, or EHT. So welcome, Ann. We are also going to be talking with two of EHT's customers. So Anna Pereira is on the phone. She is the CEO of Adonai Counseling and Employment, which is a Washington-based organization that works with people impacted by the criminal justice system. And Terrence Morgan is the CEO of Fresh Start Professional Services, which provides peer-to-peer support and referral services for adults and youth coming out of the justice system. And lastly, Rakesh Srirambatla, who is the technical lead for Exponential Health Tech Advisors and really led the development effort for the solution that we're going to be talking about today. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to have a conversation with us. We really, really appreciate it. So I want to start with you, Ann, because you have been advising and advocating for community-based organizations, and in particular, for individuals involved in the justice system for a very long time. And all of that work has really led you to develop EHT's core platform, Axion Galaxy 360. So I want to start by asking, what were you seeing that was broken? So in all of your work with community organizations and your conversations with people like Anna and Terrence, what was the core problem that you were seeing?
Thank you for having me on. You know, this passion and this work really started years ago. I worked with Anna Pereira as a chief operating officer, probably around 10 years ago, I'm thinking. But out of that also came when a passion for this when I did my dissertation for my doctorate. And my dissertation really was focused on the adoption of the electronic healthcare record systems by psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners in a community behavioral health setting. And in speaking to them, and also with the work that I did with Anna, I realized that the medical record systems that the community behavioral health organizations had really didn't fit a lot of time the workflows that they do. And so even in my dissertation, I coined it inappropriate technology. So inappropriate because it really did not allow them to document well how they treat patients and how they communicate with their patients. One of the clinicians mentioned to me that behavioral health is really a narrative, a storytelling specialty. And so they were struggling with using the technology. Also realizing that several of these organizations were still on paper. And so there was a gap, a digital gap, right? The healthcare organizations like hospitals and clinics, they had deep technology, they had electronic record systems that worked for them, but the community behavioral health and community organizations did not. And so again, there's that gap in data digitization. There's the gap in the care and service coordination, again, communicating between the different service providers. There were siloed information on paper, and there was also high utilization of their clients because again, the communication and the continuity of care was broken. So that to me was a significant problem. The other thing I recognized too was in healthcare, acute care, healthcare, ambulatory care, there's a framework of the quadruple aim. right? Where we strive to have improved experience by the provider and also the patient or client. We strive to have improved quality and also reduce cost. That is missing at the community-based level for the community behavioral health and also for the community-based organizations. And then even more impactful was the lack of funding and incentives. So back in 2009, when our High-Tech Act were passed, hospitals were incentivized to implement the electronic medical records. Community behavioral health and community-based organizations were not. There was no funding, no money, no incentives, right? And therefore, the goal that was set for the healthcare organizations and hospitals by RN High-Tech to promote the adoption and meaningful use of health information technology was missing at the community level. You know, we have 5 goals in the US healthcare system: to improve quality, improve safety and efficiency, to engage patients in their care, right? Or the clients in the care, to increase coordination of care and to improve the health status of the population. And even more importantly, especially for the population we're going to talk about, is to ensure privacy and security. And we are missing that. And again, another important factor in the traditional healthcare model, healthcare organizations, we wanted to create what we call a learning healthcare and support services system, right? That was able to use data and contextual data to help in the decision making. And again, that was missing at the community level. So all of those factors prompted me, and again, as my study with my dissertation and coming out of my dissertation, to start Exponential and also then to create Axion Galaxy 360.
I think I love what you talked about in terms of the awareness that there's a desire for care coordination, and there's a desire to really have a holistic view of the population, people that you're working with, justice impacted individuals. But at the same time, there are not the financial drivers to actually make that possible.
Yes.
That there are so many budgetary constraints that make it really challenging to implement some of these newer technologies that would actually make better care coordination and sort of deeper intelligence, intelligence about data intelligence, to make those things possible. And so I think that's really critical as you're looking at how to start bringing technologies like LifeGraph, like blockchain and Web3 to all of these organizations that serve people. So I think that's really critical, and how you've really solved that, and how you've been able to solve that and do that in a way that's actually achievable, both from a technology perspective as well as financially for organizations. So could you describe a little bit about what Axion Galaxy does?
Sure. When I think about our solution, I look at it from a current state and then a future state. So let's talk about the current state. I consider us, and our team consider us, as the technical intervention. It's a case management solution, again, built on a HIPAA-compliant private blockchain, Burst IQ's LifeGraph network. Because it's on a HIPAA-compliant blockchain, we have an enhanced encryption and data security. And as I mentioned, that's really, really critical for the type of data we're talking about, protecting that data, because it's so sensitive. And of course, we built it, our Axion Galaxy, on blockchain, because we think about the inherent features, unique features of blockchain technology, especially a private blockchain. So Axion Galaxy right now, as a standard case management software, provides a way to digitize documentation of behavioral health information, of the social determinants of health factors like employment, training, education, those things that really impact an individual overall, their overall lifestyle, right? Their housing, their transportation needs or gaps. Also, we provide way to document the criminogenic data, right? So we talk about looking at a whole person and looking at data contextually, we're able to capture that information in Axion. We also be able to schedule appointments. You're able to schedule appointments and also have a referral management pathway, as well as we have a client portal where Axion Galaxy's intake forms can be sent to a client from like Fresh Start or Adonai Counseling Employment, so that the client they send information to can complete that intake form prior to coming in for an appointment, a scheduled appointment. Our future state, excuse me, as we look into the future and recognize the transformation that's happening in the web sphere, right? The web sphere, let me say it that way. We've gone from Internet 1.0, Internet 2.0 to now we're Internet 3.0, and also the transitioning into the next industrial revolution. So we, again, recognize that we have to be ready to take advantage of the new internet of value. And so, again, building on blockchain as a core foundation, building on the Burst IQ's Life Graph network, we are preparing our client base to be prepared to take advantage of the Web3 capabilities, and so that they can then leverage that technology to provide the care and services to their clients on an individual basis. Because as you know, Web3 is really pointing towards and pushing us towards more individualized, precision, personalized medicine and personalized care and personalized quality delivery of services. So we recognize that, and we're just visionaries and thinking ahead and building on a framework that's going to help us to be able to springboard and not be laggards in the next wave of the internet. The other thing too, building on the blockchain network, LifeGraph network, we're able to really start aggregating the contextual data, and you hear big data analytics. Really, that's be able to have that framework that can handle all of that data, behavioral health, physical health, criminogenic data, as well as all of the data related to the social determinants of health. Be able to handle that and then apply, for example, artificial intelligence to that data. Because remember I said that in my dissertation study, excuse me, the prescribers stated that behavioral health is really a narrative specialty. And so how do you capture and analyze data in a textual way? Leveraging machine learning, we're able to do that. So we're just looking ahead and just being ready to take advantage and to really leverage new technology for the betterment of our clients and their clients.
I think that that's, a really important piece of the puzzle is, as a new company, you're always kind of looking to, okay, not just what do we need for today, but how do we set ourselves up with a foundation, a technology foundation, so that as technology evolves, we're ready, and we're not having to rebuild, we're not having to go back to the drawing board. We're ready for all of these trends that are going to be happening in terms of how you actually use technology to kind of meet tomorrow's needs in addition to today's needs. And I think what you talked about with Web3, I think is really critical, because, fundamentally what we're really seeing with Web3 is that we're going to move towards this much more person-centric, kind of human-centric model around data. People actually own and control their data. That data is much more distributed than it is today. So right now it tends to be very siloed and controlled by, a few small or a few large entities, as opposed to controlled by all the individual humans who are creating that data. And I think what we're really going to see is that push towards kind of data on the edge, both distributed data as well as distributed ownership of that data. And you guys are really trying to position the company to be ready for that shift in terms of your technology and how you even think about kind of the structure of how you're managing your platform.
I think it's important to allow for the opportunity for those using the technology to also be ready.
Absolutely.
And, I know that Anna and Terry, when they speak towards to the work that they do. And I think I saw Franklin join also.
Yes.
But to be able to really put the power of managing self in the hands of the individuals who they serve is also transformative. And I think that the technology prepping that baseline, right, and helping to support the work that they're doing clinically and operationally with the individuals, you talk about self-determination. That's really where the power of what we're focusing on and aiming to achieve lies.
Yes, I think 100%, 100%. But right now I want to dig a little bit into the tech side, and we've got Rakesh on the line. And so Rakesh, I wanted to ask you, so you are the lead architect of the Axion Galaxy product, and you used LifeGraph as the backend data exchange network. You could have built this using a more conventional approach. And there are certainly lots of people out there who would say, oh, you can exchange data without blockchain and you can do consent without blockchain. But you decided to work with Burst IQ and you decided to build Axion on LifeGraph network. So I want to understand from you, what role does blockchain play, and LifeGraph in particular, what role do they play in the product? And what does it let you do that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do?
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. As Anne mentioned earlier, right, our mission was to build an interoperable solution to get rid of communication silos, right, and gaps in care and reduce costs by reducing utilization, right? That's where we started off with, and we were like, how do we do it? What's the best solution to do it, right? Then we thought, giving access to, as you said earlier too, giving access to the individuals, and then giving access to the organizations that kind of have data, like last mile organizations is what I call them, like smaller community-based organizations that actually provide care to these individuals, right, that don't usually get access to the care that they kind of need, right? Giving access to those organizations was our mission to enable them to have a technology, right, that they can also be able to reach out to the bigger networks outside. So that's where we started off. And then with that, we wanted to create a whole person profile, right? And give access to parts of the profile to the organizations, various entities and individuals. And also we wanted to place the control in the hands of this individual who owns this profile, right? And so while we were doing the research and trying to figure out what we want to do, we met friends like you at Burst IQ, right? And Wendy. So we explored the solution that you guys kind of have with LifeGraph, and we kind of felt that perfectly fits our what we're trying to do. So, and obviously Burst IQ platform is HIPAA compliant, right? So we don't have to worry about building that, whatever platform we build, we didn't want to go through the whole HIPAA certifications. So that saved us enormous amount of time. And obviously, Burst IQ and LifeGraph, we've got additional support in the advisory sort of roles, right? So that's why I think we kind of overall worked out very well, both from technology and also from the advisory side of it. So that's why I think LifeGraph helped, right? And I think your other feature, I think you also have the digital wallet that we want to create at the end to give the profile in the hands of the person, right? We have the digital wallet that we want to be able to build it to, build it and hand it over to the person, right? And then I'm pretty sure Anna is going to touch more on this, how she thinks is going to be very beneficial to the, clients of our clients, right? As Anne said, Adonai and Fresh Start. So, it's exciting, and we're looking forward to building more on top of it. We're at very early stages, and we've built a really good product. We're looking forward to evolving from here.
That's awesome. I heard you sort of say two things that I think are kind of really key. One was the alignment between what LifeGraph does in terms of personal ownership and control over your digital DNA, your data footprint,
right.
And how that aligned with what you guys wanted to do philosophically and in terms of the vision of the company and of the product, and how you wanted to be able to use data in many ways as a catalyst to build trust with people, to build back trust with people. and to really empower them. So I think there's sort of one piece of what I heard you talking about in terms of this kind of vision alignment between what we do and what we believe in and what we have built to empower. But I heard another thing there, which I think is actually really equally important as a small company, which is that logistically, you have to get to market, and you have to get to market as quickly as you can. And you have to get to market as quickly as you can without like hiring 10 different people to try to build your back-end infrastructure and do all your DevOps and your data ops. And then you've got InfoSec people who are trying to push you through a SOC 2 type 2 compliance audit, which takes, minimum a year. And then you're trying to, build front-end applications and all your systems on top of that. So you've got this whole infrastructure to get a product from zero to market that can be both very time consuming and very costly and very resource intensive. And so what I heard you saying is that there's also this kind of logistical hurdle that you have to get over as a small company to figure out, like, how do we build this thing and get it out there as quickly as we can? And so I love the fact that we were helpful in that regard as well. And I want to sort of highlight that I know you guys went through our Accelerator program, which is designed specifically for that. It is really designed to help companies get up and running, get them trained, get folks building solutions as quickly as possible. It's really this guided onboarding and training program. And so I want to ask, was that program helpful to you, and how was that helpful?
Oh yeah, definitely. Right. So, obviously you guys have an amazing documentation on your portal, right? But then, having someone to kind of walk us through, how to build a live graph, how do you leverage these APIs and how to design our architecture. So that kind of helped us to, while we're actually building, right? We signed up for the Accelerator program. So it was actually, we were doing both things in parallel. So we were actually asking your practical questions while we're trying to build. We would go back and ask you guys during the, our build of the product, right? We'll ask you questions. So it was amazing timing that worked out for us. I think you guys launched it at the perfect time for us. And right when we were all about to go all into it. So it was an excellent timing for that.
Oh, that's good. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you guys have launched the first version. You are about to go live, I think. And so I wanted to turn to the people who are actually using this. And first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that Franklin Smith has joined us on the webinar. So welcome, Franklin. Franklin is the Chief Commercial Officer at Fresh Start. He and Terry started the organization. So I want to turn to you guys, and your organizations, Adonai and Fresh Start, are deploying Axion Galaxy 360, and you work directly with people who are re-entering communities after incarceration. So I would love for both organizations to share a little bit about what you guys do. And I'll start with Anna. Anna, can you describe a little bit about what Adonai Counseling does?
Thank you. So Adonai is a behavioral health organization, and we support most of Washington State with providing navigation for individuals coming out of institutions or coming through our SNAP BFIT programs that are individuals who might be receiving food stamps that are trying to transition off of the system. And so we provide case management, we do behavioral health, we do substance abuse, and then a huge portion of us is just working with those that are coming out of the justice system itself. And so one of the things that we're really excited about with working with Axion, and we've been seeing amazing things happening with some of our individuals, is having especially the platform where our individuals get to interact on, being able to upload their documents, being able to own the information that's being put out there, I think has given a huge sense of empowerment to some of our folks that are, especially those that haven't had a lot of ability to be able to do that. One of the things that I think has made a huge difference, I was thinking just prior to us starting with Axion, we had an individual that had just gotten out of a state institution where he'd been gone 20-some years, had extremely aggressive behavioral things that had been on a lot of different types of medications to be able to monitor that. And when he first got home, one of the biggest problems we had for him was just being able to get caught up with all that mental health information that the institution had, and for us to be able to get that. Fortunately with him, we had a good team that we ended up communicating a lot by phone. Now having Axion, the cool part that we have with this right now is that we have those individuals that are at the institution can work with the participant that's coming home, be able to help send us information through that portal system. And for me, that is just beautiful when it comes to our case management, being able to be ready out here for when someone's, coming home, being able to make sure that they have a full, strong support system there to be able to help them make sure we're not going to send them back. I think that the future of where, especially using the Web3 and with the ability to be able to give our clients that kind of control, can definitely make a difference in the success of what that transition and their ability to really make to be a part of our community versus being that person that just was labeled and has been a barrier to our community.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so important. Thank you for that. And I want to pass it to Franklin and Terry. Would one of you like to describe what Fresh Start does?
Yes, thank you for allowing me in the space this morning. Well, Fresh Start is a peer-to-peer organization. We work with youth and adults that have been in contact or have been in the justice system, formerly in justice, as being formerly justice involved persons ourselves. Our staff is off a life experience. We all off life experience. We do have some educators in there too, but we work with trying to stop the prison pipeline with juveniles through a diversion program that we have, and then we also have a mental health social media platform that we're working with right now with youth. We also work in the adult system with Department of Corrections, working with them as far as helping people transition out of the system into a more productive, more sustainable way of living. And like I said, as being formerly justice involved, I know more just as well as like Franklin. We work to just help people get the information and the assistance that's needed for them to be successful. And I know as far as working with the Axion Galaxy 360, it's been great help to us as far as being able to move from that conversion of paper to data, and also being able to have that line of communication with organizations like Adonai, because we do refer back and forth to each other. We work hand in hand with each other. So it's been real big to us to know that we're not given the same service Adonai's given. So it's been big in that way. Then also, as Anna pointed out, for participants just to be able to have that access to that platform, to be able to, download stuff in there and, be able to have that platform to communicate on. I think it's really big. And I think it really helps them know that they're a part of it. Okay, it's just not somebody pointing them in a direction. It's somebody that's saying, hey, this is you doing it. We're here to help you do it. And it's really the demographic of people we work with, self-esteem is big.
Yeah.
As we help them grow their self-esteem, and this Axion Galaxy 360 has really helped us with that. Mm-hmm. Franklin probably has something to share.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Terry. Terry and Anna pretty much touched on it eloquently when they spoke on the value of Axion and the 360 database system and how it is beneficial for the work that we do. Being a culturally competent organization that works with justice-involved individuals, having access to accurate information in a timely fashion is imperative to be able to provide the services to the individuals in real time so that we can not only help them navigate systems, but being a resolution-based organization, we can come up with a pathway to get them to where they would like to be at in a minimum amount of time. Our biggest thing is, how do we maximize and minimize? How do we maximize reaching the destination and minimize the amount of time it takes us to do that with the people? Using, being blessed to have an opportunity to use this system in conjunction with Adonai, which Terry had pointed out, that we refer back and forth to and depend on each other's services a lot to be able to assist our population, gives us that flexibility of being able to transfer information back and forth, because we are working on the same plateau, and have the understanding that we can trust the data that's being sent back and forth because it's based on the same wavelength. So in the short period of time that we have been using it, this has been phenomenal. It has helped us with the two different populations, as Terry pointed out, our diversion group, which is young adults, 14 to 24, and then the adult population coming out of the institutions, re-entering. I always like to tell people Fresh Start stands in the middle to try to prevent individuals from going into the justice system and work with those who has come out so that they don't go back. And we need to have a platform that we can trust to be able to get us the information in time so that we understand what was the trauma prior to incarceration, how did that experience affect the individual, and what's going on with the person now that they're in the transitional phase. Not, as Anna pointed out, the Department of Corrections is not really, how would you say, legitimate broker of information when it comes to sharing a lot of data for individuals that's coming out. And that's what we need. We need credible brokers that we can be able to trust the fact that we're getting the information that outlines not only some of the mental and physical health conditions, but some of the other aspects, behavioral health aspects that individual might be experiencing inside the facility, so that we can be aware of the possibilities that may happen out in the community if this individual isn't connected with the right providers within the first 72, 48 or weeks within their return back to the community. So for our experience thus far, it is an excellent tool for us to be able to use to continue doing the work that we do.
Thank you, Franklin and Anna and Terry. I want to touch on something that really all three of you kind of talked about, and that is that how critical it is to have data that you can trust, to be able to exchange data that you can trust as an organization, so that you have all the right information about a person, so that you can actually help them navigate the process of reentry, because it is a process. And I know that, you know, we talk at Burst IQ, we talk a lot about trusted data, and we talk a lot about the fact that building trusted data is way more than just encrypting it or giving it a hash. You know, trusted data really starts by knowing that the data hasn't been altered, that it is true and accurate, but then it even goes beyond that. So trusted data really means knowing where it came from and whether that source is trustworthy. It means knowing that the data is the most up-to-date version. Sometimes it means knowing that a third party has verified that data, that, like, yes, check mark, you know, I can attest that it's true. And it also means that you have all the context that you need to put that data into perspective. And Franklin, that's what you were just talking about, that really you have to have context of not just who is this person, what do they need right in this moment, but what are all the things that led them here? What are all the traumas that led them here? How do we understand their experience before they were incarcerated, during incarceration, and now, so that we can really help them with all of the services that would help them move into, you know, into the next phase of their life. And having that kind of data that you can trust, and the context around that data, is just so important to being able to make those right decisions in that moment. And I think, you know, the other thing that you guys touched on that I think is really important is that I think it's really hard for people to wrap their brain around the loss of trust that can occur when someone is incarcerated. And it's really kind of a two-way. You know, society uses incarceration and parole as this pretty blatant way of saying to someone who's been convicted of a crime, you know, we don't trust you anymore. And that feeling of being untrusted is really going to get internalized and is really going to, I think, sort of have a really deep impact on how someone feels and what they feel like their relationship with their community is. But at the same time, I think a lot of people who are incarcerated, I would imagine, have lost a lot of trust in the system that they have just worked their way through. And Franklin, you kind of touched on this, that the justice system isn't really designed to be kind of a trust broker. That's not what it does. And so when someone comes out of incarceration, I want to sort of ask you, like, what does trust really mean to someone, and how do we help people? How is Axion and how are Fresh Start and Adonai helping people rebuild trust in themselves, trust in the system that wants to help them? What does that trust look like?
Coming out of the justice system, you're not trusting the system, and it starts in the community. Your community, the demographic of people that we work with, they're taught don't trust the system. So going in and having that experience and experiencing that trauma, and then coming out, they're not trusting the system. But we ask them to trust the process of what we and partnering agencies can provide, and through the Axion Galaxy 360, it makes it a lot easier for me to send somebody to Anna with the information and know that, and Anna receives information that can be trusted.
And you're absolutely correct. When we talk about trust and honest brokers with the Department of Corrections and the criminal justice system, we really got to go back and just kind of look at what these systems were created for. And when individuals make violations in the community that is deemed by the authority or the dominant culture to be something outside the line, then they say, okay, you're a bad behavior, let's put you away, and over a period of time you change. With Fresh Start and with the other orgs that I work with, over time people change, just like seasons change, days and nights change over time, and with the right type of assistance and education, be it in some institutions. Every institution around our country operates differently. Washington State, where we're at, has an enormous array of educational opportunities up here, where individuals over a period of time, with the right instruction, with the right leadership inside of an isolated environment, will start to mature, which means they get a better understanding of what was happening to them. And eventually they start to heal from whatever trauma it was that got them in the position in the first place. So when people talk about incarceration, all they see is, we put you away, not that you had an opportunity to improve. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the continuum of care and how do you assist a person on a reentry pathway, we have to have the information. When we take that information, upload it into the system, now we're getting a more accurate picture of what happened to this person from childhood, intermediate teens, young adulthood to current. Mm-hmm. And with that information, we're able to put forth a proper plan, a proper reentry plan for this individual to be more successful in the community. Without that information, you're constantly start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. So we have these stop gaps in the middle. And it's usually in the middle where those gaps are that individuals fall through.
That's so important, because it really helps people start to, like you said, to rebuild trust in the process. And you know, the systems may not be designed for it, but if you can really help people navigate and say, you know, hey, look, like, we're going to empower you with ownership of who you are, who you were, what you accomplished while you were incarcerated, and really own that and empower you with that. and then also make it possible for you to navigate all of these different systems much more easily. So Anna, I want to give you a chance to sort of to weigh in on that. So can you give me an example of where this has really impacted someone that you work with?
Listening to my colleagues and where they're talking, we're talking with individuals that have lost the trust into the system, and us being able to have real good, strong, clear data as we're sharing things and supporting this individual in the community. I think the one place that especially with Axion Galaxy is not just is it something else for us to be able to have the data, but I think what's going to be more powerful is those for the individuals we serve is that their story doesn't end and they're not going to have to keep beginning again. And that as they've, especially when they've come home and we've been able to show that all the things that they've done while they were not just incarcerated, but what's happening now and the accomplishments that they've done is we've continued to work together to be able to support them, that we have a place that they own their own story. And where they're moving from one spot, as they move from one spot to another, and as they transition to being a productive and really engaging member of our community, we have a system that will be able to help them own their own story. It's not going to be us just having them as data, but they have the data of where they've come from and marking and having benchmarks to what they've accomplished. And I know as Franklin had shared, coming through a system, I too have a conviction history. And one of the biggest things I had people in my life that helped me to document where I'd come from. Not everybody has that ability to do that. And it was having those people that could give me those memories of, hey, Anna, look what you've done since, you've turned your life around. These are the things that you've come through. And there were a lot of periods where other traumas had come along in my life, and during those periods where I felt like I wasn't accomplishing things and it was really easy for me to go backwards, having those people to be able to share those stories of where I've come from was huge. And where a lot of our individuals don't have that kind of a support network to be able to do that, I think with the way that Axion is set up, that it's going to truly be able to give that person an opportunity to say, no, look where I've come from. Look what I've done. Look at the things that I've accomplished. And to know that they do have a support network that's there, that's able to communicate back and forth, that we're able to truly be able to break that when they're feeling like they're falling apart, they know they have something, it's in front of them, they own it, and the people around them that they've allowed and allowed the trust to come back in to help them start to document that it's still available.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And that, I think that ties really nicely back to what Dr. Ann was saying at the beginning, that that really this is about empowering people to take control, empowering them with the tools to take control of their life, of their journey, and really starting to rebuild that trust. Because I think that that's a really important piece for us to kind of to remember that really all of this is really about people. It's about humans and how you actually serve people and enable people to live their best life. And so, Dr. Ann, I want to go back to you really quick before we wrap up, because you've talked about this both today and in other presentations that I've sat with you on, and you really talk a lot about the why. And why you do this and why that this is so important. And I love hearing your story of why, because it's very similar to Burst IQ's story of why and why we do what we do. And it's all about people and loving people and helping people live their best life. So just in a quick, couple of minutes, can you tell me a little bit about your why and EHT's why and why you guys decided to do this?
As you said, it's about people, right? Whether we've been incarcerated or not, and I've, personally not been incarcerated, but we all may have, some trauma, like the trauma of rejection, right? That impacts us. And so as I think about the change and the paradigm change that we're having from a technology standpoint, and then I think about individuals who've been away incarcerated for years. They're coming into a new economy that without the proper support and the proper training and the proper access, they will not be able to participate in. And that impacts not just their spiritual self, but it also impacts them as an individual, right? And that impacts their health and mental and physical. I mean, it all compounded. And so when I think about how do you really make someone really feel complete again, is to be able to, again, look at that whole person and do what you can and have technology enable being able to preserve and improve that whole person. So even like I said, when I look at Web3 and the potential of what's architected and projected to be included in Web3, I think about just even being able to come out and use virtual reality, right? To be able to train us some life skills, because the skills that they may have learned while incarcerated may not be effective when they come out of incarceration. It's old information potentially, right? They need to upskill. Also, the economy, can they really participate in this new economy? So, you know, when you talk about blockchain, you hear about tokenization and all of that, incentivizing individuals. How can that be leveraged, right? To tokenize some work or tokenize, you know, activities for wellness and incentivize people to do the good. Potentially that could be a new economy. So, you know, again, there's just so much that I see potential, but again, the potential is what's in the individual. You know, Dr. Miles Monroe talks about the graveyard being the most wealthy place on the planet. And why? Because a lot of us die with what God has put inside of us that we never got a chance to express and to contribute. It's buried with us in the graveyard, and that's wealth buried. So I think about how can we you leverage technology to support the operational and clinical functions and skills to be able to bring out that wealth of that individual and truly, truly take away the wealth from the graveyard and put it back into the community.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I think that that's so important to really see the wealth in each person, to see the potential in each person, and to really be able to bring that forward. You talked about tokens and incentives, and we will have a future Knowledge Burst webinar to talk just about those things, because that could be a whole hour in and of itself. But for now, I want to thank all of you so much for your time today and for your partnership with Burst IQ and your passion in helping to make a real impact in people's lives. We need more people like you in the world, and we want to do everything we can to lift up you in your journey. I want to say thank you to all of our viewers. Please stay tuned for our next Knowledge Burst webinar, and please subscribe to the Burst IQ channel if you want to learn more about blockchain and LifeGraph and how these technologies are truly making a difference in the world with companies like EHT and Adonai and Fresh Start. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.